Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hey guys, Baby Joel here. Guess what? Last week, my dad installed a skylight in our apartment. The people who live above us are furious.
Oh yes, they were furious. Oh my goodness. Hey, we got a great show tonight. Today, whenever you're watching this, tonight, of course, it's live. And at this moment, it's live. And you know who you are if you are watching live. You can go up to the QR code and learn about, what is the definition of a mischief maker. Tonight we have a mischief maker on our show. In fact, I only interview mischief makers, and this one is almost right there at the very top tier of mischief makers in the world. His name is George Fraser, and he is a longtime friend, a trusted mentor, a guide to myself and to so many people, written a number of books, and you're really going to enjoy him. Dr. George Fraser, he's a distinguished leader and trailblazer. He'll make you think differently about relationships, wealth, and leadership and legacy. And tonight we're going to be going into that. He's born in Brooklyn, so those who are from Brooklyn area, one of your own will be speaking. He lives in Cleveland, and like George likes to say that if you're from Cleveland, you're smart, but if you're born in Brooklyn, you're double smart. And he established himself as a great author, innovative entrepreneur, inspiring speaker, the founder of PowerNetworking Conference. He's revolutionized the professional how professionals connect and collaborate, and emphasizes the importance of essential networking skills in building sustainable wealth and successful businesses. He's committed to promoting diversity, equality, inclusion, evident in all his endeavors. And he has made extraordinary contributions that have earned him to be inducted into the prestigious Minority Business Hall of Fame and Museum. He's also selected for the History Makers digital archives from Smithsonian, present a prestigious community of Black Americans who have significantly impacted their community. And he's just a ton of awards. In the past 24 years, the Power Networking Conference has gained acclaim. In fact, Forbes magazine has said it's one of the top 5 conferences not to be missed. And I think the 25th, the Quarter of a Century Conference is coming up this November, and you will not want to miss it. It's going to be in Cleveland, I believe. He'll correct me if I'm wrong about that. A new book called The New Flex. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're going to talk about elders and wise counsel, effective networking, connecting, growing, and so many other things. But first, you know that I like to write music and produce music. In fact, my new album is coming out very soon called, hey, you got it, Mischief Maker. And I think we're going to have about 15, 16 songs on this. It's going to be CD, maybe we're going to do an LP, I'm not sure. But you'll be able to order that, and we'll let you know when that's available, probably in another couple of months or so. But the song we have tonight is, I've actually been to the site in Jordan where this happened. It's called In Praise of Limping. It's where you remember Jacob, how he had a fight with the angel. They fought in the nighttime season. The angel touched him in his thigh, and he limped for the rest of his life. And in fact, when I meet new people, I search for a limp. To me, a limp is wonderful. Because when we're young, we're kind of ricocheting off the walls, and hey, you're lucky I'm here, and we got a kind of a high charging approach to life, and then we get hurt. We go through pain, and then the limping starts. And I think that is such an important part of leadership, servant leadership and followership, is being a person who has a limp. So listen to this song, and then we'll come back around, and George Fraser will be with us next after the song.
Jacob was a fighter, but he fought to deceive. A man of ambition with tricks up his sleeve. He stole Esau's birthright, played the game of control. Jake's life was broke, and God reached for his soul. By the river they wrestled till dawn's early light. Left with a limp, somehow got it right. Get the big head fall, flat on your face. Walk with a limp, it's the mark of God's grace. Think you're a big deal, you're just starting to fall. But a limp is the mark of surrendering all. Saw the man chasing dreams that he had designed. Built his kingdom, left meekness behind. The walls came down and his plans fell apart. He lost what he built, but then he got smart. As the years clicked by, he had a scar to remind that God does his best work when pride has died. Get the big head fall, flat on your face. Walk with a limp, it's the mark of God's grace. Think you're a big deal, you're just starting to fall. But a limp is the mark of surrendering all. She was a woman who carried the weight of loss and betrayal, a cruel twist of fate. Her dreams were shattered, her heart torn in two, but in her surrender, God made her brand new. She now limps with a purpose on earthbound streets. Her once empty canvas is a masterpiece. The world says the strong are the ones who will rise, but God lifts the lowly, confounds the wise. It's upside down, who gets the prize? The broken rise up where pride is despised. He chooses the broken, the weary, the small, to show that his strength is above it all. So if you're limping today, don't be ashamed. It's a sign that God's love has rewritten your name. Remember this, when is a good day for your soul.
Well, turn the lights on. A bad day for your ego is a good day for your soul. George, it's so good to see you and to have you on this show tonight. And I want to encourage our folks watching live. If you have any questions for George, and I know you will because he's a man of wisdom, feel free to bring those to Mel. We'll bring them up. And I promise you this time, last week I had something over my screen. I wasn't able to see it. This time I'm going to be hyper about it. I'm going to be looking for your questions for this evening. George, welcome.
Oh, it's Doc, it's so good to be with you. Many years, you're just an incredible human being. And you're full of love, full of empathy, full of knowledge, full of gifts. You're creative, you're productive, you just never stop. You are a machine. And I love that about you because we tend to love those who reflect who we are. And you're about serving humanity. And I love that about you. You've always been that. We've been, almost 20 years? I don't know what
Easily,
the number is.
easily 2 decades or more.
Yeah,
I can't. I think we met at in
Thank you for having
Georgia.
me.
In Georgia at the Cushite conference. Remember that?
Yeah. Right.
And you came up to me afterwards, and I said, I didn't know you from a hole in the ground. And you said, I think I'd like to have you come and speak at my conference. I think at that point you never had another white man speak.
No.
Anyway, I want us to, if you could, we want to get to some very important salient elements about your life and everything, but I want to take us back to your childhood and in Brooklyn, and then the connection, how you made it to Cleveland, and some of the folks in your life that have made an impact. But tell your story a little bit about your childhood, please.
Yeah, I don't look like what I've been through. Born and raised in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York, in the Jewish hospital in Brooklyn. They say if you're from Bed-Stuy, you're either a thug or a gangster. I'm a gangster. You're gonna find out. In fact, at the Power Networking Conference, the 24th one, Power Networking Conference, we had black T-shirts made that said "gangster," and under that, we qualified it. All earned, never given. From the James Brown School of thought. I don't want nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door and I'll get it myself. But yeah, my life started tough. Born 1945, so yeah, I'm 81, going on 82. Thank God. Hopefully, I don't sound like it or look like it, but I am 81 years old. And born 1945, right on the cusp between the silent generation. The last born of the silent generation was 40. The oldest of the silent generation was 1945, and I was born in 1945. So I'm 6 months into the silent generation, but I'm really a baby boomer. Baby boomers, 46, and my father came to this country in the early 1900s from Guyana. Beautiful blue-black man, married a fair-skinned sister, Ida Mae Baldwin, from Lumpkin, Georgia. And she was quite a lady. Let me just put it that way. Very gorgeous, but frisky. Let's just put it that way. And I'm one of 11, 8 boys and 3 girls. Half of those were my mother's children before she met my dad. And my father purchased, I think it was about $25,000, a 3-story brownstone in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. But before we did that, we were living over a butcher store in some, I forgot the address in Brooklyn, but it was that's a whole nother story. I don't want to take time with that, but it was from the butcher store to Bed-Stuy. Um, and My mother became mentally ill, seriously mentally ill, paranoid schizophrenia. And she was ultimately hospitalized and actually died in a mental institution in her 70s. My
What was
father,
your youngest age when you saw, and how did she present with the mental illness to you at
I was,
that age?
I was actually 2 years old
Wow.
when all of this happened. So I never got to know my mother as a young, conscious, developed, even kid. I was just a baby. And but I did get to know her because, well, let me finish the story because it'll tell you how I got to know my mother. So my father's a New York City cab driver, and he could not care for 11 children. So me, my sister, my younger brother Joseph, and my three brothers right above us, we were all stair-step children, were put into orphanages. I stayed in an orphanage with my sister and my younger brother Joseph for 2 years, and then we were shoveled off to foster care. So I aged out of foster care. We were in several toxic homes, foster homes. And now I'm not against foster care. I do a lot of support work for foster care, but at the time I was in foster care, it was not a good thing. Um, and so it was growing up on the main streets of Brooklyn, and then we moved to my foster parents moved to the suburbs, and it was a very 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 tough life. Um, we aged out of foster care at 18. That's typically in the United States. You age out, so you have to go back to someplace. Unfortunately, my father kept in close contact with all of his children and would pick us up on holidays, and we would take us back. He'd take us back to the brownstone, and we would play as kids, and we'd go visit mom. Now we remember by that time I'm 8 or 9 years old, and we're visiting this woman who is paranoid schizophrenia. So it was more traumatic than it was informative. And so we would do that 2 or 3 times a year because he would pick us up for Easter and Christmas and so forth. But it was really sort of, I didn't know what to think, to be candid with you. Finally, as I said, we aged out of foster care and we went back. And because my father took care of his brownstone, we had a place to go. 40% of foster children in America end up homeless because they actually have no place to go back to. And so we did have a place. So at 18, my sister was 19, and my younger brother Joseph was 17. We all went back. Now we had older brothers who were 3 years older than us, and they went back to the brownstone three years before us. So by the time we got back home, we're in this big brownstone, and my three older brothers were heroin addicts at that time. Heroin was the drug du jour back in the day. This is in the 50s, okay, 50s and 60s, and then ultimately became heroin dealers. So now I'm new in this place with older brothers I'm in a very impressionable age, 18, 19, but I don't know if it was God. I don't know what it was. But very quickly, I made up my mind that I could not stay in this household with my brothers and all of this very toxic activity. So I decided that I would leave, and I had an older sister. She's still living. She's 97 years old, Myra, who lived in Cleveland. That's how I ended up in Cleveland. And I called
Really? Oh,
Myra.
wow.
Yeah, I
I
called
never knew
Myra and
that
said,
part of the
"Listen,
story. Wow.
yeah, yeah." I called her. I said, I got to leave. Eddie, Scotty, and Walter are drug addicts, and in fact, one of them ended up serving time on Rikers Island in New York. While I was there, he was, selling drugs. So I said to my younger brother Joseph, "Listen, I talked to our older sister, and she'll take us in. She's in Garfield Heights in Cleveland, Ohio, and all we need to do is pack up our stuff, get on a Greyhound bus, and we'll go to Cleveland, and she'll, we can stay with her until we get on our feet." So I asked him if he wanted to go. He said, no, I'm going to hang with my brothers. I said, man, I said, Joseph, this is not a good move. It's not going to end well. I said that to him, but he still insisted. He was really in awe and enamored with the life they were leading. I was not. So I left. I packed up what little I had, got on a Greyhound bus, and went to Cleveland, Ohio. And my first job in Cleveland, Ohio, was working in the laundry room at Cleveland Clinic, which at that time was one building. Okay.
That's a huge monster place now.
Yeah, Cleveland Clinic. And then I worked a couple of years there, and then I worked at the Halley Brothers in the basement wrapping Christmas gifts as a side hustle. All right. So a couple of years pass, and I get a call from my older sister, Emma, and she said that my younger brother, Joseph, was killed in a drug deal that went bad.
Goodness.
Well, right? Whoop, there it is. I'm not surprised. I warned him this was not a good environment to be in. Another brother ended up on Rikers Island as well, serving time in jail. That's how I began. My first real job was in New York right before I left, and that was mopping floors on the midnight shift at LaGuardia Airport, because no one thought I was college material back in the day when I was a foster kid. So I was sent to a vocational high school and got a diploma in carpentry. I'm very good with my hands. I really loved it. And cabinet making and making furniture. And those were the gifts that I would bring my foster parents when I made a table or did something really nice and curried favor. And because I couldn't get a job in carpentry when I was in New York, that was another problem, because the Italians controlled the carpenters union, so they were not allowing black folks to get apprenticeships. So my first real job was mopping floors on the midnight shift at LaGuardia Airport, cleaning toilets. So I'm in a toilet cleaning it one evening in a stall, about 1 o'clock in the morning, Joe, and a white guy comes into my bathroom. So he does his business, and he goes over. I'm still in the stall, but by the time he finishes, I popped out of the stall. He goes over to the sink, and he's washing his hands, and then he balled up the towels that he used to dry his hands. He took the towel, he then wiped down the counter, and then started polishing the chrome on the faucet in the bathroom. So he didn't know I was watching him, because I was leaning up against the stall, and I laughed. I said, "Would you like a job?" And he laughed, right? I said, "Don't worry about that. That's my job." Okay. He said, "No, that's what I do." He said, "But can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I've never been in a public bathroom where the person who was cleaning the toilet was whistling, right? So like he was singing." And so he said, "What was that about?" I said, "Well, if you can't be with the one you love the one you with, learn all you can. I'm not going to be doing this the rest of my life, but there's something I can learn from it." I said, "But I want to ask you a question. Why were you cleaning the counter and cleaning the faucet?" He said, "Well, I learned a very important lesson in life, young man." He said, "No matter where you go, what you do, or whom you touch, leave it just a little bit better." So here I am 60 years later telling that story. That resonated in my deep subconscious mind, Joel, and informed my entire life. I still tell that story when I'm speaking in big audiences, that you never know who you're going to learn from. And I wrote a book called 10 Truths for Building Extraordinary Relationships. And the seventh truth is, be open to everything, attached to nothing. The best idea wins. And I got the seed of that principle from this man that I met cleaning toilets at LaGuardia Airport. And we're having this conversation. One thing led to the next thing and to the next thing. And it was really also one of the reasons that helped inform me, I got to get the hell out of this house that I'm in, right? Because it just was not that kind of environment. So we get information from the oddest places, but if you're open, if you're listening, right? If you don't think you're all that in a bag of chips, if you understand that God isn't finished with you, right? You're like a giant carving, right? That will take 80 years to complete, and you have to be open to that. And that really is really the provenance, the foundation of how I ended up being who I am today. Learning lessons from wherever I can get them, listening, right? And appreciating and giving thanks and giving gratitude. And I told him when he said that, I said to him, wow, I said, I'm going to remember that. He said, yeah. He said, and the rest is history.
So when you got to Cleveland, you're working. Were there any individuals that took an interest in you, some adults, and mentored you and opened up doors for opportunity, or how did
Yeah,
that work?
yeah. But it was all happenstance and circumstances. Now, when I got to Cleveland, I didn't have enough money to get an apartment, let's call it that. So I lived in a hotel on Euclid Avenue, which at the time I didn't know was famous for one thing. It was called the Quad Hall Hotel, right around 80th Street and Euclid Avenue. And the Quad Hall Hotel was the hotel that all of the stars stayed in that came to perform at Leo's Casino. Now, I don't know how long, if you've ever been to Cleveland or how long you've stayed in Cleveland, but back in the day, the hotel du jour was Leo's Casino. That's with Smokey Robinson, all of the big jazz. That's where I met Miles Davis. All of the big jazz and R&B performers played there. I lived on the second floor. There was no bathroom. It was just a room with a sink, and there was a one bathroom, large bathroom on the second floor. So I'm coming home late one evening, and I walk past an open door, and it was dark in there, right? But it was the room right next to mine, and I just sort of out of curiosity peeked in, and there was a young man looking in the mirror, shaving. So I looked in and I said, "Sir, would you like for me to put the light on?" He turned around. It was Ray Charles, and he said to me, "No, I
I
always
don't need the light.
shave in the dark. I always shave in." And of course, I recognized him, and I didn't realize that he was the performing act downstairs at Leo's Casino.
My goodness.
And we became friends. I mean, because he just thought it was nice that I was concerned that some guys in a dark room, maybe the light went out. I don't know. And so he was really one, because Ray Charles liked to talk. He was an incredible singer, but he was even then in those younger years, he was a philosopher, and he always had good advice. Now, so God works in mysterious ways. So I'm living in this hotel that the stars stay in. So I meet some of the greats, right? From everybody from Smokey Robinson, because that's the hotel they stayed in, to Curtis Mayfield. Curtis Mayfield was really special because Curtis Mayfield took a liking to me. I had there was no real restaurant in the hotel. There was like a bar counter where you could get some food, snacks, but not a meal. But I was very familiar with the area and knew where the soul food restaurants were, which were not far from the hotel. And I told him about it, and I said, "Yeah, I'll be more than happy I didn't have a car. I said, but it's within walking distance. You know, they got catfish. And I told them, but to me, and I went and we became friends. You know, Curtis Mayfield, you know, died in an accident, but he was
Yes.
one of those incredible R&B performers. He wrote he wrote the soundtrack for Superfly, right? Which was a huge movie back in the day. So
Absolutely.
I was always people called me sort of charismatic because I always had a smile on my face. In other words, I was approachable and I always was humble, right? And and full of thank yous and gratitude. And it endeared me to people. And I wasn't doing it. I wasn't smart enough to use it as a tactic. It was just who I was. It was in my DNA. And so people took a liking to me quickly, engaged me, and I was smart enough to ask questions and shut up, right? And just listen and be thankful for the knowledge that I got. So I met many at a very young age, many powerful and important people. I had met Miles at Leo's Casino, but I had met him another way back in New York when I had a part-time job as a messenger delivering messages. And let me tell you that story.
Can we come back to Miles? We're at the top of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
hour and
yeah,
have to
yeah,
take a
absolutely. Sure,
break for a
sir.
sponsor.
Right.
And then I can't wait because you hear a lot of stories about Miles, and he was sometimes difficult and unwilling to talk. But I can't wait to hear that. Let's go
Yeah.
to the break with Rosetta Universe.
The Rosetta Stone provided clues that revealed many of my secrets to a modern world. Come learn how even more ancient mysteries are unlocked by the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project.
There we have it, the Rosetta Universe. This is something you'll want to learn more about. And the QR code above, there's a link tree. And number one on the link tree is the Rosetta Universe. One of the ways that we're raising funds for this project, every penny goes to the foundation, is the Jack Johnson belt that I designed. And it weighs about 10 pounds. We've had folks like Sugar Ray Leonard and Sugar Shane Mosley and just a host of other fighters that have seen it, held it, and have said it's the most beautiful belt they've ever seen. This belt is designed to coalesce all of Jack Johnson's winnings because all he got was a sash if he won or something like that, and nothing much. And it's just hopefully will launch tens of thousands of educational conversations to this younger generation. And so the only way to get this is to go through the QR code or go to Rosetta Universe and click on it, and then you order it. We send it out to you, and it's beautifully packaged. You will love this belt. And you'll put it up, if you're a man, you put up your man cave. If you're a woman, you put up your woman cave, whatever that you have to commemorate the memory of Jack Johnson, the boxer, world heavyweight champion from 1908 to 1915. Well, let's turn back to George. George, if you could pick up where you met Miles Davis, and then I want us to, after you tell the story, I want us to transition to how you became a speaker, an influencer, a mentor to many other people. Let's talk about Miles.
Yeah, Miles, for a second. I was a messenger when I was a teenager running the streets of New York. You didn't have a bicycle. You just took messages, important messages, from one place to another. And, you know, it would be within a 1 mile radius and you would walk there. And I was given a package to take to Columbia Studios. And so, you know, I walked there and the door was cracked and I opened it. And there was a booth there, but there was no one in the booth. But I can see from a distance there were 4 or 5 people sitting sitting around. I didn't know what they were doing. They were too far away. So I walked in and I went into the booth. And I didn't want to disturb them. Then I knocked on the window so they would hear the sound. And this gentleman who was sitting on a looked like a bar stool walked over to me. Now, my father was a jazz musician, and all of my brothers took up various instruments. I even played an instrument in the family band, so I was familiar. As the person got closer, it looked like Miles Davis. I was familiar with his face. I didn't know him, and he walked over to the booth, and he came into the booth, and he said in his yeah, kid. He said, "What do you want?" I said, Mr. Davis, I have a package for you, and if you could just sign this, I'll give you the package. And he signed it, and then he cursed at me. He said, "Get the f out of here." That's what he said, very serious. I said, "Yes, sir," but I was just ecstatic to even touch him, quite frankly, like a black god to me, because he had a huge reputation at the time. Now, come to find out, I've done research years ago. I had walked in on it was a break time, but it was when Miles Davis, and I didn't know these people at the time, Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, Wynton Kelly, Gil Evans, John Coltrane were cutting the album Kind of Blue. Kind of Blue is the best-selling jazz album in the history of jazz, featuring Miles Davis. I didn't know that at the time, right? But it was that day that they were on the second side. I did this because I knew about what time I was there, and they were taking a break, and they were doing naughty stuff. They were doing the drug du jour of the moment. Right. That's why Miles was sort of he didn't want me to see that or experience that. And I fell in love. In fact, on my desk in my office, this is not a prop. There's a photograph.
Look at that. There he is.
I met him several times after that in various situations, and he was just a very nice man. He had a very well-known reputation as being very gruff, but a genius. He changed jazz 5 different times. He's considered one of the giants of jazz, and I got to meet him up close and personal. And then I saw him at the 5 Spot. I was 19 years old. The 5 Spot in Brooklyn, where him and his quintet, sometimes it was a quartet, would play. So that's one of my little claim to fame. He didn't know he wasn't a best friend. No, he wasn't a pal. He would, if I would go in, because I would go in with my brothers. He remembered. He would just sort of grunt at you and wave at you, kind of thing. But it was one of the treats of my life. I did not know he was all that in a bag of chips. It was just way later, that I found out the provenance of this giant of jazz. Yeah.
Now, how did you transition? Let's go back to Cleveland, and you are in this hotel, and little by little, you're transitioning to doing what you do today: speaking, encouraging, providing mentorship to others, launching a conference. Business partner that has subsequently passed away. Tell us that story and that transition.
Yeah, all of these, the provenance of how we get to where we are is typically done through the influence of relationships.
True.
Relationships. It was John 5:30. And it's a direct quote from Jesus Christ. And there are 800,000 words in the Bible. Only 1,200 words are direct quotes of Jesus Christ. John 5:30, and Jesus said, I of my own self can do nothing. Now, this was Jesus, the Son of God, and he couldn't get it done on his own by himself in a vacuum. Right? You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Right? The fastest way to change yourself is to hang out with people who are already where you want to be. I was very selective about the people that I endeared myself to or wanted to meet. I think another way of saying that is don't spend major time with minor people, right? People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing nothing want you to do nothing with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships because you chose them, right? Uh,
Like in Click, you said there's 3 things. You run
yeah,
everything through a
yeah.
grid, right? Fit,
In my
timing,
book,
chemistry.
Click, in my book, Click, I put together an algorithm. Oh, well, actually, it's an equation. I was just going to get it out here. What did I do with it? Here it
Fit,
is.
timing, and
Here somewhere.
chemistry.
It's here. No, I thought I had. Oh, here it is. I thought I had it with me. But this is the book. Click 10 Truths for Building Extraordinary Relationships. And there are 3 things that have to be in perfect alignment for you to click. See, you don't click with everybody that you interact with and everybody that you network. You click with them when these 3 things are in perfect alignment: chemistry, fit, and timing. We could have good timing, good fit, bad chemistry. We're not going to click. We could have good chemistry, good timing, bad fit. We're not going to click. Goals and objectives of character traits do not mesh. All right. When those 3 things are in perfect alignment, you create what I call a win-win-win. You win, I win, and the people that we both serve win. Here's the equation. C square, whenever you square a factor in an equation, it increases the power of that factor. Times F, that's fit, times the square root of T. Whenever you square root a factor in an equation, that decreases the power of that factor. So C square times F times the square root of T equals W to the 3rd power. W. You win, I win, and we both win. So that's so you when you're meeting people, you want to look for the right chemistry. Hopefully it's the right timing and the right fit. I've been very selective about the people. So how did I get into speaking? I had a very young friend of mine. You might be familiar with him. His name was Les Brown.
Yes.
And Les Brown was the young man that broke the color barrier when it came to speaking. He wasn't just speaking only, he's very dark skinned, for Black people. He was speaking for massive conferences, all different colors. And
Let's
it
start with
was
PBS, where he did some of these special
yeah,
things
he
with
did. Well,
PBS.
he did some stuff before PBS. He was doing his thing before, and PBS noticed him, and they said, "You probably should have a show. You know you speak well. You have a good press." And he got the show. So so he was a real early inspiration. He came to my home, and I went to his home, and we talked about it. And he told me that he was a radio disc jockey in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
That's what he was doing first. But he always had this very melodious voice and very, very smart.
And
So
a laughter that was
a
just
laugh.
so
When he
it's just so
laughed, everybody
contagious.
laughed. That's exactly right. Charismatic and just very easy to. We became
When you
long
call
time.
a cell phone, he and you hear his voicemail. He laughs at every end of every voicemail.
Yes. hmm So it's the people that you meet, and then you have to understand that the most powerful asset that you will have in the 21st century will not be AI. It will not be your computer. It will be your relationships, right? because you don't build a business, you build your people, and your people build your business, right? Because we're all in some form of business. I don't care what you call it. It is some form of business to monetize whatever skills you have to earn money to provide, right? So business is about relationships. Without relationships, you have no business. Without relationships, you have no business being in business. In fact, the business you're really in is the business of building relationships. That's the
Yes.
business that we're in,
Yes. That's
because
the
there is no
business.
success that you can attain, sustain, or maintain on your own by yourself in a vacuum. You've got to do it with and through other people. This is
Yes.
critical. So let me say that a
Here's a
different
live
way, and I'll
viewer.
finish with this point. Friends are critically important because it's
Mhm.
God's way of apologizing for your relatives. Because you pick your friends, you can't pick your relatives, right?
You can pick your
So yeah,
friends.
so I've had that
We have a viewer
philosophy.
here.
Hmm?
I'm sorry. We have a viewer, Kenny McEnroe. He says Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People outlines a progression from dependence to independence and finally interdependence.
That's right.
Covey focuses on character. You focus on relationships. How do they fit together?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So that was one of the most important books I read in my life, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I probably read that book 5 or 6 times. That's a book, one of the, other than the Bible, that in Proverbs, that have helped to inform my life. That book did the most. I finally got a chance to meet Stephen Covey. We
Hmm.
became friends, and then probably fast forward a couple of years later, we were on the same stage, right?
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, absolutely. And he died. He died too young, to be honest with you. I mean, he was just brilliant. His son is doing some things as well, but yeah, he was an icon, and he set the standards for a lot of young folks of my generation. And it's
Well,
he,
Kenny asks a question. He says, Covey focused on character. You focus on relationship. How do they fit together?
no, well, character. I'm writing a book on this, but I'm glad he asked that question. Called The Seven Critical Currencies of Life. All right. And character is one of those currencies, and that is your ability to bounce back, your integrity, your trust. Um, do people know you? Do they like you? Do they trust you? These are all character traits that you bring to the table that help you to develop relationships. It's very, very important to develop your character and to have the right models for the things that we're talking about. Which one of there are people that were in my life. For example, Earl Graves, who was the publisher and founder of Black Enterprise magazine here in America for many, 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 many years, and I always wanted to look like Earl, comport myself like Mr. Graves. He grew up around the corner from me in Bed-Stuy. He was just 1 block from me. I used to see him walking. He was 10 years older than me, but he was also always well dressed, well groomed, had an attaché case. So these are things that you see that you talk to yourself. I would like to emulate. I like the way he carries himself. Therefore, I would like to carry myself in the same way. Then I finally got a chance to meet Earl Graves years later. And then I did some work for Earl Graves. And then I wrote a book in which Earl Graves endorsed. And then I'm looking for something here. And then fast forward, I end up on the cover of Black Enterprise magazine,
Wow. Look at that. That's
right?
incredible.
Right? Relationships, relationships,
And you saw
relationships.
him walking down the street in Brooklyn
That's
and
right.
were impacted by
That was
him.
the
He didn't even
beginning.
know you from a hole in the ground.
Now he didn't know me from a whole. Not only that, but there was a 10-year gap between us, right? So
Sheesh.
you can imagine. I'm 18, he's 28, right? So he's a grown man. But I just admired how he carried himself, how he talked to people, how he greeted people. When I would see him, I didn't know what to say, but he would always nod with a smile, and that impressed me, right? And I wanted to be like that. And then finally, once I moved to Cleveland, Well, I mentioned it to another very close friend, Miss Carol Hoover, who was the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Cleveland, Ohio, and she knew Barbara Graves. That was Earl's wife, and I knew that she knew her. And I said, I really love to meet Mr. Graves, and if you could talk to his wife, and maybe we could do something. So she did. And she called me up a couple of weeks. She said, I talked to Barbara, and it's interesting you mentioned that because they're putting on a 7-city networking tour to teach people how to network. And they're in Cleveland is one of the stops on the 7-city tour, and they're looking for volunteers to help put it together. I said, not only will I volunteer, I'd like to chair it if that's possible. She said, well, I don't know. I can't make that decision. She asked Barbara Graves. Barbara Graves says, yeah, that's fine. And if you vouch for him, and she did, and I became chairman of the Black Enterprise Cleveland networking tour. I put together a volunteer organization of 200 people, right? And we put on the biggest of all the 7 events. And in fact, Earl said that himself when he came. He was flabbergasted. He said, this is larger than the one we had in my own town, New York City. And he was ecstatic.
Oh, my.
Right. And I just asked him if I could have his card, and I was happy to serve. I didn't want, I wasn't looking to get paid. I was volunteering. Why? I wanted to get to know this man, make an impression on him, and just touch the hem of his cloth, and someday be in a circle of people that he was in. And that happened. Fast forward. No, I did not bug him. Right. I did not call him every day. Right. I would see an article that was written about him. I would cut it out, put it in an envelope, make a comment on it. I just saw this about you, Mr. Graves. I just wanted you to have an extra copy, that kind of stuff. And fast forward 5 years later, when I was asked to write a book on networking by HarperCollins, which was William Morrow at the time. They asked me if I knew anybody famous. I said, yeah, I know a few people. Earl Graves. She said, oh, yeah, we know Earl Graves. And she said, well, we would like to send him the manuscript to read it, and maybe he would endorse it. So I called up Mr. Graves. The only time I called him from the day I served him, I called him and I said, Mr. Graves, I'm writing a book on networking. Thanks to you, and many of you influenced me, profoundly. Would you do me a favor and read the manuscript and see if you like it? So he said, sure, of course. Right? They sent him the manuscript. He read. 2 weeks later, he called and said, this is outstanding. He says, it's so outstanding, George, that this is going to be the first book excerpt in Black Enterprise magazine, and because of that, we're going to put you on the cover of Black Enterprise magazine. Now, do you think helping Mr. Graves 6 or 7 years earlier, I was thinking of that? No.
No way.
It was just the right thing to do.
You
want to meet important people. Like here's the point. If you want to meet important people, you have to be where important people are, and don't ask them for anything. Ask them, how can I serve you? How can I help you? How can I add value to your life? Is there something I can do for you? Right? And that was the incident. That was the thought that was in my mind when I wanted to, when I got the opportunity. I didn't even know it existed. It was an opportunity presented. And then one thing led to another.
Well, Lowell Sanders just wrote in, he said, 6 degrees of separation. Your thoughts on that? Is that
well, if that's the best you can do. 6 degrees of separation. They say that it takes 6 people to ultimately meet the ultimate person that you want to meet, right? I wanted to meet Earl Graves. So what was there? There was 1 degree of separation, right? My friend, good friend, who was then chairman of the Chamber of Commerce of Cleveland, knew his wife. 1 degree of separation, right? She connected with him. His wife talked to, right? So, yeah, 6 degrees. If that's what it takes.
Yes.
If that's what it takes, then do whatever it takes to get to the right person.
Sometimes 2.
Yeah, right. But if you can get 1 or 2 degrees, it's a stronger connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we have about 4.5 minutes left.
Oh my goodness.
This has been great. So many people are in pain there's historic pain. I mean, we can look at any country that's in our viewership right now, and there's pain, historical pain. In America, there's a lot of pain. How do you deal with, how do you work with someone who is overwhelmed by pain? So much has happened to them, and in some ways could be tempted to become a victim, a victimhood mentality. How do you address that as you've addressed it in your life?
Yeah, it's a very deep question. So let me tell you what I tell large audiences, because all of us are dealing with some pain. There's something, right? There's something in life. And I deal with it. I know just 2 or 3 minutes left. I start with an opening statement. We are all fortunate to be able to die. And then I do a pregnant pause. I said, let me explain. It means that you overcame millions, if not billions to 1 odds, billions of sperm cells going up into your mom, right? One of them is eventually strong enough, breaks away, impregnates your mother's egg, and you were born. And when you were born,
You won the lottery.
now it's bigger than that. That's exactly right. That's the essence of it, right? Let's think about that. The human species is 300,000 years old. So let's say you're 50 years old. That means it took 299,950 years for you to be born. And you are a singular event. There will never, ever, ever, ever in the history of the human species be another George Fraser or another Joel Freeman or another anyone. You are one of a kind, right? You would beat 400, this is AI, 400 trillion to 1 to be born. And when you're born, God gives you what? Time. That's why in my book, The 7 Currencies of Life, Critical Currencies of Life, what is the number 1 currency? Time. Now, you're given time, but you don't know how much time you have, right? So let me put it this way in closing. Time is the only currency that you spend without knowing the balance. And the great Buddha says it differently. Buddha says, you're not killing time. Time is killing you. What is the point? You are here. You have been given time. Use that time wisely. Get through your pain. Pain is a part of life, right? Right? Get through it. You will get through it. That pain that you are experiencing at this moment in time, it is at this moment in time. It will only continue if you allow it to continue, right? Because hopefully you have a long and productive life ahead of you. What are the 3 most productive periods of life? The third most, this is science and biology, this is not my opinion, I'll close with this. The third most productive period of your life is between 50 and 60. The second most productive period of your life is between 70 and 80. And the number 1 most productive period of your life is between 60 and 70. That means that between 0 and 49, you haven't done a damn thing yet, right? Yes, you've gone through pain. We have all gone through pain, right? My favorite quote outside of the Bible, you've heard me say it, is a quote by Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius said in 600 BC, the impediment to action advances the action. What stands in your way becomes the way. In other words, the obstacle is the way. The obstacle is your pain, right? What is the first thing God does when he gives you an assignment that he feels that you have been prepared for? He puts an obstacle in your way. And your job is to find a way over, around, through, and under that obstacle. Trip, fall, make mistakes, and learn the lessons. That's pain. It's a lifetime of pain. Then you apply those lessons to the next assignment, where what's the first thing God will do? He will put an obstacle in your way. So obstacles do not block the path. Pain does not block the path, right? It is the path. No one will get out of this life without obstacles and pain. Get used to it, right? And figure it out and learn your lessons. But you're here to do good.
George, this has gone by too quickly. We have Janet Carson with a question. Isn't networking more serendipitous than purposeful? We have no time to do that.
These
Janet,
great questions. Well, you can make it serendipitous, but I've always made it purposeful.
Yes.
right? In fact, some of the relationships that you will connect with that are powerful are serendipitous. They just happen circumstances, right? But you make it purposeful if it's the right person.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
George, this is unbelievable. We need to do this again. I think we just barely scratched the surface. I think we have people that would love to hear more of your wisdom. But thanks so much for taking time out of your crazy schedule and being with us this evening.
It's a love thing. I love you, man. Keep doing God's work.
I love you.
Any way I can help you, any way I can serve, any way I can add value to life, your life. That's the purpose of life: loving, giving, serving, and adding value. Right?
Yes.
You know where I am. And I'm with you.
Right back at you. You know where I am too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.